Yes, everybody, welcome back to Football United TV. I'm joined by very special guests, Rich and Brush. We're talking about the new proposal, the Super League. It's back on the table. This is the Football Politics Show, and here comes the intro. Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Football Politics Show. I'm joined by very special guests, Rich and Brush. Rich, how you doing, mate?
Doing good. I've fully recovered from our embarrassing defeat on the weekend. But apart from that, I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Everybody, please go check out Eagle Eye Football as well. It's a brilliant channel on Crystal Palace. And you're not wearing no pumpkin today.
Listen, it's Halloween season. That pumpkin might make a return soon.
Sorry, mate. The video was amazing and it did very well.
It was hilarious, seriously.
Rush, how you doing, mate? You all good after the result as well this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. Like Richard, you know what? I was pleasantly surprised with Everton. I didn't expect to watch a game and enjoy them actually play football. They did really well. Unfortunate for you guys, but they turned up.
Yeah, that was the difference. They turned up, we didn't. Had we lost and we had a bit of fight, then you just put your hands up and say you lost the game.
Yeah, that was the thing. You just did not turn up at all.
Did not compete. So we deserved what came to us.
I mean, Cody for Everton's been a super buy, hasn't he?
A revelation. Him and Tarkowski is a nice little partnership they've got going on there.
You wouldn't have said that at the start of the season because it still looked a bit dodgy, didn't it? And everyone was calling for Frank Lampard to possibly go out, and who was going to go out between him and Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard, of course. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are here for a specific topic that is the Super League. The proposal is back on the table, and apparently it's only a matter of time that all the clubs, well, top 6 or 8 in England at least, will probably join again. I think it was 6 originally. Starting with you, Rich, because I know you're a Palace fan, and the dream for most clubs that are in the Premier League at least is to try and get into European competitions, especially the Champions League. So how do you feel on this, mate, that the fact that it's never going to really be going away, it's always going to be pouncing back on us, and it might, unfortunately, ruin a lot of other clubs that, like we say, their dreams are to get into this?
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, just looking at a football fan's perspective first, growing up, watching the Champions League and seeing that, like, you get your spot through merit, in a sense. You obviously look at how the Premier League's developed over the last couple of seasons, and the so-called Big Four turned into the Big Six, which shows how much development has been made in the Premier League, how much harder it is to make the Champions League to start off with. And then you obviously get your outside runners, like we had Leicester City make it. West Ham were very close to nicking the spot last season. Wolves have made the Europa League, but obviously with this coming back on the table, we know that there's money-hungry owners out there. And I would even put it down to some of the clubs who are actually broke. Like, you don't realize how many teams are broke. They're kind of running on debt, and this will obviously keep the money circulating around the bigger teams across the world. So, as a Palace fan, it's disappointing that this has come back again. A lot of people say, "Oh, but you're a Palace fan, maybe you could win the league." It's a tainted league. All of a sudden it becomes a tainted league because you're not winning the league. And I'm not saying that we're ever anywhere close to winning the league, by the way, but you're not close to winning. You're not going to win a league which has a Man United, a Man City, Spurs, Chelsea, Tottenham, etc. Arsenal. Sorry if I offend any Arsenal fans out there by forgetting that you're part of this. But then it becomes a case of, oh, we've won the league, and the league had like Norwich and West Brom or Sheffield. You know what I mean? It's not the same. You know, the dream is to do what Leicester did. You know, at some point it may never happen, but we never thought Leicester would do it. You know, and yeah, it's just embarrassing that it's come back again. But hey.
Is what it is, unfortunately, isn't it? I guess we've got to keep talking about it and our discomfort about it to make them realise that this isn't going to be the right way to go. The fans clearly don't want it, and I'm pretty sure the fans are what makes this whole thing work, isn't it? You got to have fans on board if you're going to have some sort of new league and get the rights for people to watch it. Because clearly, I mean, Brush, you'll have something to say on this, and I know you've got to say something about Todd Boehly as well and his involvement. But you've had Barcelona, Real Madrid, and Juventus that have always stuck with it since day one. They haven't left it. And I think it's Perez as well that's really pushing on this to happen. So what's your thoughts on it, Brush, mate? What are you thinking?
Yeah, with the clubs that you just mentioned and like Rich touched on, it comes down to the finances. And that's why those guys are proper avidly behind this. For me, I think it's a total farce. I think it just belittles all domestic European leagues and takes away from the current structures. I don't really see the point of it, if I'm being totally honest. Even the Champions League as a cup competition, it's a magical thing. People aspire to get there on merit. And also, you know, the big draws, the ones where we're waiting for to pull out the big game, the Madrid versus the Barca's or Madrid versus United or whatever. What makes it special is that it's not every year that you get to see that. Like, you know, it comes around once in a while, and it really is the luck of the draw. So when you take that aspect out of it, and it's just expected that every year you play such and such team, it will just become mundane after a while.
You said about Todd Boehly as well, mate, because obviously he's just taking over at Chelsea.
So basically, they asked him about it because obviously they're working on this new version of the Super League now, which they're hoping to get up and running in sometime in the next 3 years. And they've altered it slightly to try and get people on board. Whereas before it was just a closed off, top 6, wasn't it? And now they're saying, you know, and there was no possibility of relegation or anything. And now they're trying to add those elements in and saying that they're open to suggestion. And Todd Boehly, we've already heard some comments on what he thinks, the London Cowboys and that. He basically said that he's basically refused to rule out the possibility of Chelsea joining if there's a proposal on the table. So
can I say, if Chelsea's name get changed to London Cowboys, they officially become the biggest banter club out there.
Yeah. But this is what happens. This is what happens with all these billionaire owners and franchisees.
Yeah, it does. I was going to say, like Barnet, I know they're not a huge club, but they're trying to change their name, aren't they, to the London Bees? It sort of seems like it's. Imagine that the London Cowboys, perfect colours as well.
It's crazy, isn't it? See, even that with Barnet, that sounds more like a nickname than a name for a club.
Yeah, the London Bees.
The London Bees.
So it's A22 Sports Management. That's the company that are promoting the revamped format. And if I could just read something out. So it was going to be the 12 elite clubs. Obviously, Bayern Munich and Bundesliga clubs like Dortmund, I'm not going to be interested in because they got the 50+1. It's strange, isn't it? The fact that you can see that the fan ownership in the Bundesliga, which is, you know, dominant, apart from maybe a few clubs, you're talking about Leipzig, that are pretty much Red Bull run. Do you think they're never really going to be interested in this, Rich, no matter how much they try and get them in? Because you're never going to have a Super League without Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund, are you?
Yeah, and I love the fact that they've got the 50+1 because it puts everything in the fans' hands. You know, they have a say in everything that's being done, which I think is amazing. However, don't put it past these I'll call them crooks, to find a way to manipulate the situation. Because as you just said, can you really have a Super League with no Bayern Munich? You know, and even Dortmund, when you look at like historically, Dortmund are a huge side.
Yeah.
They're a very, very big club, you know. And when you think about if there are big clubs like the Bayerns and the Dortmund say, nah, you know what? Nah, don't fancy this. And then other big clubs decide to do the same. It's really going to taint the vision of the Super League, you know. So yeah, I'm glad. I'm very happy that they've kept their stance on this in Germany.
And on that, Rich, I think that's why initially with the first one that failed, they had to draw up a contract so that all the clubs opted in. It was kind of, you know, to make sure that they're tied in. And they'll probably try something like that again, I'm sure.
Yeah, they should.
I'm surprised Rich Leipzig haven't gone, we'll go for it.
I think it's just kind of like you know what, we do banter the Bundesliga regarding the quality of football. Obviously, unfortunately, Bayern Munich are just crazy. I mean, you take Bayern Munich out there, the Bundesliga will probably be as competitive as the Prem, because every other team is kind of in and around each other in a sense, you know. However, when it comes to like credibility and there's a word I'm looking for and I can't remember, but just like how they are run, they're run correctly. They're very efficient, Germans. I have to give them credit for that. They're very efficient and they take everything into perspective. You know, even the fact that like with Bayern Munich, I know like they're a huge club, but like Oliver Kahn, they put him on a course as soon as he finished playing. He's now obviously one of the CEOs at the club. I think
it's a similar thing with at Ajax, Rich. You know, they do that as well, where they don't just take on former players for these roles, but they make sure they send them to school, that they get properly qualified, and then get bedded into their system.
But you mentioned Ajax there, Brush. Ajax weren't initially in the original plans for the Super League,
which is shocking because if you look at their European pedigree,
biggest clubs out there.
Yeah, if you look at the European pedigree, they deserve to be there.
Yeah, they've won more than Man United in the.
They were there. They one of the few clubs that won three in a row. They three-peated the Champions League in the 70s.
But this then goes back to the respect that Leeds get. The Vise, so pronunciation, doesn't get the respect it deserves. Yes, and you know what? We've got to remember, look, and I say this all the time, had the Prem not got an injection of money, it would have been one of the most irrelevant leagues out there, personally. That injection of TV money has made the Prem what it is and stuff, because...
And it's just overinflated now,
yeah,
I think.
It's gone crazy now, yeah.
Yeah,
back then, when you're looking at Champions League, I would say up until Man United broke that mold in '99. Your Champions League semi-finalists would generally consist of Juventus, Dortmund, Ajax.
Yeah.
Who else might have been in there?
Yeah, back then, Rich, it was definitely Serie A dominated.
Yeah, Milan sort of thing. So
it was definitely Serie A dominated. That Juventus team was disgustingly good.
Oh yeah, Italian Serie A in the 90s.
They were brilliant. Yeah, because even the Spanish league, looking back on it, they weren't that strong, bar like Madrid.
Nah, that's a good point.
So I guess
I think the emergence of the Spanish teams were more 2000s, where Real Madrid, Valencia, Barcelona started picking up.
Yeah. When Frank Rijkaard turned up at Barcelona, that's when they really started to rebuild again. Got Ronaldinho in there, and the rest is history.
So maybe that's the problem. Because of these countries, specifically the Serie A Italian League and the Spanish La Liga, they're losing a lot of interest and not getting as many people around the world checking out their leagues, because obviously the Premier League is the highlight. So what have they got to do, seeing as we just said that they were pretty much dominant leagues back in the 90s and the 2000s? What's happened for them to suddenly be nowhere in the equation? I mean, you've seen what's happened with Barcelona recently. They're in turmoil. And I mean,
I think first of all, sorry, Rich, go on.
Now, so in my opinion, two things have happened. Number one, like I said, the sudden rise of the Premier League and the financial disparity, that had an impact. Now, obviously, all of a sudden, everyone's flooding to the Premier League because you're going to get the most money. You know, some players are flooding into the Premier League and just not wanting to play, but they've got their contract there and they're sitting on it, you know. The other issue was obviously some clubs have got away with being able to go into debt and some haven't. Let's look at even like League One. We had Bury, I believe, we go into administration. But because, like, for example, and I know Man United is a brand, but they can sit on £600+ million debt because of their name and stuff. Because to be fair to them, they're always going to be generating money. And it's a shame that the ownership, they're crooks as well. Like, don't get me wrong, I am not backing your owners. They need to go. Simple as. But other than Barcelona and Real Madrid, who are two other clubs that are not really financially stable, I think Real Madrid are getting back to a space where they can stable. Barcelona, it's turmoil. It's mad. Like, what they're doing is, I don't know how they're getting away with it. I was looking forward to hearing AFC Barca, but But when you look at the Juventuses, the AC Milans, the Inter Milans, they've had to suffer financially and kind of rebuild their way back up to being even relevant again. So it's kind of like one rule for one, another rule for another when it comes to like the financial disparity and such. So that's played its part. Sorry, Brush.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off of that, I think they need to look at these TV deals and a better way of distributing the funds. Because that's really been the game changer. That's what's messed up a lot of people. It's the warped distribution of funds. And even if when we look at the pyramid, like from the Premier League to Championship is a huge difference. Like it doesn't trickle down to the lower divisions. It's just the Premier.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? And it should do really, because the amount of money that I'm pretty sure UEFA do make, it should trickle down. And there is talk about how the Premier League money doesn't really trickle down good enough at the moment, and they're trying to figure out ways that the FA and the Premier League can get together to make sure it happens, and trying to bring in public governing bodies as well to try and keep it legit and stuff like that. I've heard things that they might be trying to do. But I don't know with this Super League. I'm gonna actually what I'll do is we've got some comments here, some really good ones. So big up to Brush, Matt Bassett, evening all. Big up everyone on the show and in the chat. Football versus Cancer talk says big up. Nitesh, the crazy gooner, big up, mate. Manchester City and PSG spending Super League level money for the last 10 years or so. That's all it is, I guess. It is just the money, because PSG, you wouldn't really say they are a dominant team in Europe, which I don't think. Football versus Cancer, it'll be the sponsors that make this happen, because it is a money-making machine just waiting to be switched on. You agree with that, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what this is. This is just a money-making exercise is all it is.
Sponsors, But
what happens the sponsors are probably already there. They're already there just waiting. They're literally just waiting.
Listen, those lot are probably looking at this as the footballing equivalent of like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But wasn't sponsors not dropping out because of the news of the Super League as well? Did it not have that mirror effect?
I think that was probably one of those precautious things where brands didn't want to commit when they saw the backlash, but then everyone's going to come around to the table again.
That backlash had a massive impact on people's mindsets and stuff. Like you mentioned Chelsea earlier. I know United, I think they ransacked the pitch before the whole stadium for a game. I forgot who you were playing. I don't know if it was Tottenham or something, but it was a pretty...
there was the Liverpool game was supposed to go ahead, but it had to be postponed.
Yeah,
pitch invasions. They're inside the building.
Exactly that, and I'm sure that it may not be that in magnitude, but there's still going to be outrage.
That's why I hope that sponsors don't do the silly thing and just literally sign the deal before actually the people that make them money, which is the fans yet again. They might sort of take it in dispute with the sponsors, and they might lose profits. Big G, oi oi. Football versus Cancer says Yo G. Big G says, I thought the government put something in place to stop the possibility of a Super League ever forming in the future. I'm not sure that they did though, right?
And even
I think they spoke about it. I don't think there's anything in legislation to stop it from happening. And also the other thing is you have to be very careful with these lot, because they're very tricky around paperwork. So whatever they bring in, they'll find a way around it.
There'll be a loophole somewhere.
Yeah. Or they'll basically offer up an alternative to the Champions League. So they tell teams, listen, pull out of the Champions League and take part in our competition instead.
What they need to do is make the World Club Cup better if they really want to make something better that isn't that good at the moment. I'd like to see that every 2 years, and you have like the year before's winners and that year's winners in Europa and Champions League, and the same with South America, because I know they got the equivalent, and do it every 2 years and have like as a summer tournament. But yeah.
But with the Club World Cup, you remember, Matt, back in the day, it was different. You had to, you didn't automatically just get into the latter stages. You still had to go through the group stages. Do you remember when we dropped out of the FA Cup to go join that and got absolutely battered by everyone?
Right, yeah, and we had group stages first. Yeah,
yeah, we had group stages first. Yeah, whereas now, I think if you win the Champions League, you kind of supersede that and just get to the further stages.
Imagine that, because you'd have 4 teams in Europe in it. You'd have 4 teams from South America. You'd have maybe a couple from North America and Asia and Africa. I think it would be cool.
Yeah.
Manj Sandhu, big up the panel. Thank you, mate, for coming in. Big G also says, from an English perspective, anyway, I mean. Manj says the Premier Super League. Well, I guess the Premier League is the Super League, isn't it? Pretty much. That's why there's so much drama going on about making a new league in Europe. Man says Juve, AC, Inter, mods needed. Yeah, I know. I saw them comments above. Funny. Thank you for the contribution, you bots out there. Cov, we're in the because we're in the Premier League for a very long time. They have struggled since getting relegated. Matt, delete the sex check comment, please. Oh, dear. Hey, come on. Hey, Matt and the panel. Everyone's welcome. If I say that, I've got to stick with it. Even the bots are welcome. Good evening, panel. Hopefully you are both well. Big up, Jackie. Haven't seen you for a very long time. Hope you're doing well. YouTube, Twitch, etc. will want to be sponsoring the Super League. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, they're doing big, aren't they? So, Big G, the business element and morals needs to be second at all times. Football is for the communities and the working people. Completely agree. Apologies, I missed out, Brush. I need glasses.
It's all good, Jackie.
So maybe just to finish off, because I wanted to keep it kind of short and sweet, so people didn't see the video back and go, "Oh my god, it's an hour long." Just sort of ask your guys' opinions, because it's nice to hear what fans think, even if we don't know too much about it. It's just nice to delve into it. But are UEFA hypocrites for changing the format of the Champions League to the Swiss model? And the new Champions League format is the number of teams competing in the competition will increase to 32 to 36, meaning there will be 189 matches instead of 125, and the group stage will be replaced by a league phase, otherwise known as the Swiss models. Rich, starting off with you, mate. What do you think of this, mate? You think they're just trying to do exactly what the Super League are doing, and they got a little bit scared and they feel like they need to change it up?
Absolute hypocrites. Absolute hypocrites. Funny enough, UEFA the ones that was like, oh, if you go into the Super League, we'll kick you out of. Like, they were kicking up a whole heap of fuss as well. And then they're doing this, and it's bad enough that the next World Cup is 48 teams. Please correct me if I'm wrong. It's just all to make money. That's all it is, and it's going to dilute the integrity of the competition. As you say, people are going to get bored of this. I feel sorry for player well-being, for starters, because
they don't care about that, Rich.
I know. They're already playing too much football.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already trying to get rid of international friendlies as it is, and this Nations League. They're just adding too much football,
which is basically just rebranding friendlies. Is all it is.
It's all a joke. Yeah, they're massive hypocrites. 36. It's not going to make the Champions League any more fun. It's just going to be like, you're going to see another random nation team. Bless them, obviously, for their country and for their club. It's going to generate money for them. Fair enough. But a team from Azerbaijan, or Uzbekistan or whatever, playing against Real Madrid, it's going to be like a dead rubber, and like no one's going to watch it realistically, apart from if you support both teams. So
yeah,
I don't know. Hypocrites.
Just unnecessary extra games, isn't it? And as for the format as well, absolute joke. They're obviously trying to mimic the Super League format in the hope that the teams stick around in that and don't go off by themselves. But for me, it was a competition where, you know, it's a cup competition. It always has been a cup competition, and there's no need for this league phase.
So you'll pretty much win. It'd be like a East and Western Conference sort of thing. You'll win that league, and then you'll go into knockouts and playoffs. And
it's just unnecessary, Matt, is what it is, mate.
I promise you, we are going to mirror American sports.
I mean, listen, I remember there was a few years where they had 2 group stages. Do you remember that? You finished second, you finished first and second in one group, and then you went into another group.
Oh right, yeah.
And then they scrapped that to just have the round of 16 before the quarterfinals. It's all a joke.
It's a mess. Watch Champions League finals gonna have like a Super Bowl-esque halftime show soon. The Americans are literally taking over. And then the next thing, advertisements.
Well, we've already seen the beginnings of that, haven't we, Rich? The Liverpool one against Real Madrid. Was that Camila Cabello at the start? Doing the singing and that.
It's just too much. And
so what do we do with this, Rich? Because we're obviously not liking UEFA, and we know that there is a maybe a possibility of corrupt. Well, I think there clearly is. But I don't want to throw it out as if I completely know either. So
allegedly, just use that word.
Let's just use allegedly.
Allegedly corrupt. But I'm just going to say it, I know you are. So what do you think? I mean, are we going to be literally, if we do the Super League, is it going to be leaving one corrupt thing to another, or is the Super League actually trying to clean it up? I don't think so, but
the question is like, when will this stop? They thought of this idea. What's next? You know, and what happens to the Super League if, let's just say, they're thinking, oh, Tottenham ain't really that good, are they? You know,
they're not.
So, fair point. But do they then say, you know what, we're going to throw you out, and let's say if Roma fancy coming? You know, how does this work? It's terrible.
And you just know, Rich, they'll find a way to get Newcastle in there, and we know why.
Absolutely.
you look at Serie A right now. You got Napoli at the top. I think Juventus just before the weekend. I'm not sure how they've done at the weekend, but they were in 8th position.
Them and Inter Milan were doing quite bad. Atalanta were second.
So it's not. I mean, this whole Super League thing wouldn't be good for Juventus if, say, they finish 8th this season. Then it'll be like, well, we want Napoli now. We don't want you anymore.
Yeah, and then if they do it on historical merit, then that rules out a whole bunch of current teams who are doing well. And then, for these greedy people, like teams like Newcastle, who are going to be big in the next couple of years, they won't want to rule them out of anything. They'll want them there in their competitions.
But what if you do get the surprise team from the Prem? For example, let's just say let's just chuck Palace in there. Why not? Palace to Manchester to make Europe. Do they make the Super League? Let's just say Sassuolo from Italy, Torino. Not really well, because they've kind of always been there. Betis, who have been struggling recently. When does it stop?
Yeah, and how do you become that successful? I mean, look at Manchester City. Imagine this Super League came, like, say, 2008. They'd be nowhere, but now they want them in because it's all about money. Clearly, if they want Newcastle in, they're not really caring about. I mean, yes, Newcastle are a big team and they have a lot of support, and they've got one of the biggest stadiums in the Premier League, but they're still not really that big for UEFA to go, yeah, we definitely want you in just because of the name. It's pretty much because who owns you.
I'll tell you what, guys, it depresses me because as fans, we somewhat have our hands tied and we're limited in what we can do to actually protest. Because, you know, if it actually goes ahead, people are going to be there kicking and screaming. But once it's over the line, we're probably going to watch.
Of course we will.
You know, that's the thing, because they know that, like, emotionally we're tied to our clubs. That if we're in a competition, we're going to watch, aren't we? No matter how much we disagree with it. look at this World Cup coming up, for instance. I know me and you, we've discussed it, Matt. Like, I wasn't a big fan of it happening at all for a multitude of reasons. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of us, even though there's a lot of things that we disagree with regarding this World Cup, we're going to tune in, and that is what they're betting on.
Do you know what I'm tuning in for, though? A political backlash going on. There's so much going on. You've got the Iran thing going on right now.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, though. Like, because I thought it was going to be issues around the Russia one, but that actually went off without any hitches.
I know, right?
So
because they were cool. They kept it calm. They were like, we're not going to back people about so much and that. And if they did, you wouldn't have known about it anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been televised, would it?
They're a bit smarter. They've got a long stretch, haven't they, in Europe?
Yeah, just on the Iran one. I mean, obviously, if they do end up getting kicked out, I don't understand how they then want to put a European nation in.
I thought that was weird because they go, "Oh, we should put Ukraine in." I was like, "Well, come on, hang on a minute. It doesn't quite work like
Europe already have enough delegates as it is.
Yeah,
chuck in another African team or another Asian team.
Yeah,
listen, there's some strong
Rich
Nigeria, Ivory Coast.
No, Nigeria didn't get in.
No, we knocked them out. Ghana.
Oh, Ghana didn't get in.
No, Ghana knocked them out.
Ghana did get in.
Yeah, we're in. We knocked Nigeria out.
Right. What?
So, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. There's some big nations, not just in Europe, that are not at this World Cup. We don't need to throw Ukraine in there for a sympathy vote.
No.
I'm sorry.
Rather Italy, wouldn't we?
Yeah, actually, yeah, if you're gonna take it, throw an Italy in there. Yeah.
Who
did Holland? No, Holland made it. There was another
Holland
team
made
that made it.
Good question. There is somebody else.
But even then, it's a bit of a madness, though, to pick a team that didn't make it on merit. Like, if you didn't qualify, then you don't deserve to be there, you know?
How would you do it? You'd have to have a playoff between... I don't know. How would you do it? How would you be able to...
Who did Iran have to play someone to get in? Whoever they beat, maybe they should go in.
Ah, yeah. Who was that? It wasn't like New Zealand, was it, or something?
It could have been something like that. Because I mean, every other nation has to not only. I do feel for them. I know we've kind of deviated and I'll end on this. It's funny how like the European nations, they have their players within their nations, but like for Oceania and like even like I think South America, CONCACAF, I think once they've got to their their playoff place, they got to play a different continent.
Yeah, I know. It's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. Like they should definitely like maybe separate that a little bit more. I do think though with the South America one, they should try and get that together so they're both together because it's just too easy for America. It's too easy for them. America and Mexico, they're always in because who are they playing really? Canada, a few like Jamaica, a few Caribbean islands. Maybe I don't know whether Costa Rica, of course, as well. They're in. Costa Rica in this year as well. Yeah, interesting. Guys, any more to say on the Super League? If you had one last thing to say,
Bin it.
Yeah. Get rid of all of that. Just concentrate on making the existing things better and refining it. That's what we need. We don't need the wheel to be reinvented. Just refine. That's pretty much my last thoughts. One thing as well, I would really like it if all European leagues were in unison. So, for example, in the Bundesliga, there's only 18 teams, and they always brag about this winter break that they have. It's because you play 4 games less. Like, relax. Have 20 teams like the rest of us. I think they're going to do that in League One now as well. Starting, I think it's either next year or the year after. They're cutting down to 18 teams. It's a bit mad. I'd like it if everything was in unison and we all had 20.
I think 20 would be good. I think even the Scottish League, Rich, as well, they should have 20. They're wondering why the Scottish League isn't so good. It's because you've got 10 teams and like it needs to be more stretched around, more travelling, more teams involved, more upsets, more.
The Scottish Scottish League 2 and 3 can be scrapped. Just push it.
Do that. Just promote the brand. Yeah, just promote the brand like that. and then do a better job and do a
it.
better job of distributing the TV money.
Yeah.
And make football more accessible as well. Like even like in this country, the 3 o'clock kickoffs, the fact that they're not on TV is a disgrace.
That's changing, isn't it, from this next year or the year after?
Yeah, it needs to. Things like that. We need to make everything more accessible. We need to get the kids in.
With that, Brush, it used to be because they were worried about people not going to games if it would be on TV.
Yeah. Back then, I could totally understand why that was, but now we've long gone past that now.
Do you know how silly that sounds anyway? Because they would then throw it at 8 o'clock in the midday, knowing that people.
And you know what's mad? The fact that I can travel around, go on holiday to any other country, and I can watch a 3 o'clock kickoff, but here at home I can't.
I know. America, I love it. When I was living over there, I could watch every single game all day.
Yeah.
Like people were like, my God, how can you watch so much football? I was like, because I never watched this much football. Like, you only have about 2 games. Well, at least back then, you only had like 2 games a day that at the stretch, like maybe one Super Sunday game and maybe one on the Saturday. It didn't used to be on a Saturday either. I don't think you used to get anything, Rich. I don't know, Brush, if you remember, but
yeah,
used to get one game to play on a Saturday. It used to be just match day.
Yeah, that was it. And teletext.
I'll tell you one thing I did love about back then, though, our Football Italia on Channel 4. Oh, that was one of my favourites. And again, it comes down to accessibility, innit? So even in the foreign leagues, just because the Premier League is the one that is the richest in that, like, yeah, start showing foreign football here. If you make it accessible, people will watch and people will be interested.
Do you remember the show before Football Italia? It was World Sport, I think, on BBC. And it used to show the leagues around the world. And
and then on the old cable boxes, there was a channel called Eurosport. And they used to do the weekly highlights of all the European leagues. I remember tuning into that.
As a kid, infatuated. I was like, oh my God, what's going on in Hungary this week? You know, like,
and now it's just all at a click of a button on YouTube, isn't it? You can watch any highlight you want from anywhere.
Well, I've got a few more comments to read out, guys, and we will finish it off. Where were we? Manj says YouTube. Oh, we've done that one. Apologies. They think players are robots, says Manj. They do indeed. It's the Super League in disguise and slowly chipping away at each country league. Plus, what about player welfare? They are not football robots.
And yeah, as far as disguises go, Jackie, it's the equivalent of like drawing on a moustache and putting on a pair of shades.
Brilliant. Big up, Dad, from Niall Kane. I love that. I love that brush. That was good. Jackie, it will be called the Champions Soccer League next. Oh dear, hands in head there. Clues in the name, Champions League for champions in each country. That's how it should be. A cup for second place, Cup Winners' Cup for a winning FA Cup or League Cup, etc. Simplistically. I don't even know if that's a name, but yes, I like that. Sorry, a word. Simplistically? Simplistically? Yeah, sounds good. Sorry, mate, my English is very bad.
That works.
Manj, it's the history of the Super League with Tottenham. It will be more content for the creators, 100%. Big G says, I think the Arab-owned teams are against the SL, to be fair. PSG turned it down last time. Man City reluctantly accepted, but
it was PSG, the other team that turned. Okay, cool.
Wow, did they really? I was quite surprised.
I knew there was another big team that was like, no,
listen, PSG were probably thinking if all these lot bugger off, we can finally win a Champions League.
Good point.
Yeah. So don't think they stood down on some sort of moral high ground.
We can actually win one now. Everybody's out of it.
Yeah.
Weren't Ecuador going to be kicked out for some reason? Not too sure. I know Colombia didn't make it. That is a surprise. Ecuador, I'll have to check that out, man. Very interesting. Australia versus UAE qualifier. So maybe what you say, maybe these two teams were the two teams that didn't make it that could go for it. But you said as well, Rich, that it should be the team that probably played Iran and lost, or whoever they were. I reckon it should be them. But we'll talk about that next Monday, actually. We're going to delve into that. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Smash like, share, subscribe if you can. Really does mean a lot. Rich and Brush, thank you so much for... I'm so tongue-tied today. Joining us today. It's been a Monday.
You're welcome, mate. It's been a pleasure as always.
Not a problem. Always enjoy it.
Where can we find you, Rich? Shout out all your social medias. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you again, Matt, for the invite and stuff. It's good to be back here. Great discussion as always. You can find me at Eagle Eyed Football, so it's predominantly a Crystal Palace content. On Twitter, as you can see, wait, make sure I point correctly. It's that one. There we go. There. That's up. It looks so mad mirrored. That's our Twitter handle at Eagle Eyed Ball. We are on Instagram, eagle_eyed_football, but we don't use that as much. So you mainly find us on Twitter and on YouTube. So come join us.
Brilliant. Really good channel, mate, Eagle Eye Football. Everybody, please go check it out. It's really cool indeed. Brush.
You can find me on Twitter as well at Brushy87, all capitals. Aside from that, I just kind of float about. So yeah, you'll catch me here with talking to Matt. You'll catch me on the United agenda. You'll catch me on Richard's channel as well. So yeah, here, there, and everywhere.
I'm guessing that'll be for the postponed Palace game that you might be doing something together, right?
To be fair, I just kind of pop in. So because Rich usually does a weekly Premier League show for all fans called Get Amped, which is usually on a Sunday. I think is it a Monday now, Rich?
No, usually Sunday.
So yeah, usually Sunday. Yeah, so everyone's free to phone in, and yeah, we just end up having a chat. It usually turns into a United therapy session because there are a lot of United fans over there on his channel.
It is funny, to be fair.
I'm guessing that's true, Rich, because you laughed all the way with that.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah, so sometimes he has to intervene and say, yeah, this isn't just United. Like, are there any other fans out there? Please call in.
Poor fella, you was.
Thanks for reminding me, Big G. I've just got over it.
You just reminded him.
Listen, Big G loved the banter. If you don't have the banter, what's the point of having a channel?
Exactly. Agreed. We're just fans at the end of the day, just having a laugh like we would down our local pub.
100%.
Have a brilliant rest of the week, everybody. Go check out everybody's socials, channels, and we will see you again very soon. Take care.